I've been noticing a lot recently that these cheaper watches are getting really damn good, like way better than they should be. And rather than harbour that internally, I thought I'd share some of those budget watches with you. So here's 10, spanning a range of entry-level prices that do more than you'd expect for the money. Sorry to interrupt, I just wanted to let you know that I've deliberately left out Christopher Ward because I'm pretty sure you're all already aware of it by now. Anyway, carry on! So I've been meaning to fix the sticky handle on my front door for ages. I'm sure I'll get round to it at some point. That's a little look at who I am, but if we take a look at Elshan Tang, founder of Zelos watches, you'll get a very different vibe. When he was just 15, he started collecting Seikos. When I was 15, well, never you mind what I was up to when I was 15. Anyway, Elshan's love of watches drove him into the business of buying and selling, but he found that to suck quite hard, and so he decided to make his own watch brand instead, which he did, aged just 26. When I was 26, I think I was doing the same thing I was doing when I was 15. Elshan created Zelos watches to bring a flavour of the best watches in the world at a much cheaper price, even if that does come at the cost of some pretty dumb sentences on the website. Here's an example. At Zelos, we draw inspiration from the rarest places, from miles beneath the sea or above the clouds, or sometimes even from outer space. Yes, the sea, which covers 3/4 of the planet, and the air, which stretches 10,000 kilometers above, and space, which is literally 99.999999% of everything, is rare. Delightful pageantry aside, Zelos produces some 10,000 watches a year, with new designs coming every month in limited runs. Elshan's joy comes from designing watches and using unusual materials, right from this entry-level Swordfish field all the way up to $10,000 tourbillons in titanium Damascus. Keeping the budget at $399 and you get the 38mm Swordfish Field Stonewash, which has a stonewashed titanium dial that looks a little bit like an Oreo. It's 12mm thick, which is decent, has a stainless steel case and bracelet with quick adjust clasp, plus a sapphire crystal and 200 meters of water resistance. Power comes from the plucky Seiko NH38. Turn out the lights, fire up the UV torch, and the dial lights up like a murder scene. It's not just the hands and markers that get the luminous treatment, with the chapter ring alternating between green and blue, for fun. And if you like fun, my other favourite thing about it is less about the watch itself and more about the webpage it sits on. If you scroll really fast on the 360 image, it spins like a lunatic, literally minutes of entertainment. Say hello to Benjamin James Adams. I haven't actually met him, but his ability to grow a thick, luscious beard has already made him my enemy. And when he's not expelling thick face locks, he's working on his watch brand, also called Benjamin James. Just no Adams, not since Thing got his law degree. Ben cut his teeth designing watches for WatchGecko's subsidiary Gekkota, but sick of the corporate chains weighing him down, Ben busted out to taste freedom for himself. Or he just fancied having a go on his own. Probably that one. For his first watch, he's playing it safe with the Scarifour, which isn't an alarming number. It's a dainty little 70s-inspired timepiece that seeks to wage war against hulking great wrist armour. At 31mm wide, 40mm tall and just 8.3mm thick, it wears, as my old nan used to say, proper. There's no cuff too tight, no sleeve too short, no wrist too noodle-like for this saucy little number. The case and bracelet are in stainless steel with a sapphire crystal and 50 meters of water resistance. The dial in 6 different colors has a chevron motif so you know which direction to walk in. The polished bezel has 8 sides, of course, anything else would be a crime against disco. And there are 4 small holes which will at some point yield the satisfaction of cleaning dead skin out of them with a toothpick. Where things get fruity is in how you choose to spec the watch. To enjoy the £380 starting point, you can choose to furnish the watch with a Ronda quartz, or you can bump it up to a Sellita SW210 for £660. The Sellita, to keep the slender proportions of the watch between both movements, is hand wound. If the PRX is like first-gen PlayStation Lara Croft, think of the Scarifour like PlayStation 3 era with all the hard edges rounded off. There's a lot more detail and delicacy here than the similarly priced PRX, and a whole lot more of that gentlemanly something that'll have people calling you sir and pitching you business ideas. The deeper you explore, the more detail you see. Guess who I bumped into at the airport wearing a watch from Nivada Grenchen, the makers of our next choice? No, not him. Not him either. One last guess. Wrong. You're not even trying. No, it was none other than watchmaking legend Roger Smith. Yeah, that Roger Smith. As if you need any more reasons as to why this watch should be on your radar. Oh, you do? Fine. Now, yes, Nivada was originally founded in the 1920s, but the revived brand needs to speak for itself today, and it does that with orange aplomb. With more nods than an agreeable audience, the Chronoking Paul Newman Orange is like a best-of clip show of 70s watch paraphernalia, all squeezed into a 38mm case. Let's see now. There's the size, which is suitably period at the aforementioned 38mm. Yes, at 13.7mm it is thicker than a bunker door, but we'll forgive it that for just how orange it is. I haven't seen this much orange since my battle with carrot anemia. The colour was so popular in the 70s because it was exactly the opposite of the austere monochromacity of the previous generation. Either that, or someone at corporate accidentally ordered too much Procyon 020. But the coolest thing about the watch is its Paul Newman style subdials, with the straight bits and the round bits and all the bits. Feels a bit too much like a Rolex ripoff, but here's the trick. Nivada was actually one of the original recipients of this dial design, created by dial supplier Singer for a number of different manufacturers, of which Rolex was also one. But it belongs here as much as it does there, and so here it is. Keeping costs down is a Seiko VK63 Mechaquartz, but keeping quality up is the double-domed sapphire crystal, stainless steel case, and 100 meters of water resistance. Prices start at $479 on a strap and go up to $679 for the bracelet if you're so inclined, but given how good it looks on just about anything, it doesn't really matter. You'll be swapping outfits on this every chance you get. It'd look good hanging off an old SCART lead. It's a similar concept but very different execution for this next watch from Furlan Mary. We're sticking with the Mechaquartz, upping the price a hair to 555 Swiss francs and bringing in a whole dollop of classic goodness to compensate. Remember how we said the Benjamin James would have people calling you sir? Well, this one might get you knighted. It's as old money as a crumbling mansion filled with potpourri. As well as the recent addition of the more expensive mechanical range, the Mechaquartz series has been updated with a couple of new, as the trendy youngsters call them, colorways that really bring out the wallet in me: Rossio Grigio and Castagna. I think that's how they're pronounced. Not only do those sound like the colours I'll never pick for the Ferrari I'll never have, but they also bring the classic design of the Furlan Mary into a slightly more contemporary space. The first series of these was very traditional, with blacks, golds and silvers, and that looked great, if a little generic. This time around, the mix of greys, greens and reds sits somewhere between Patek Philippe and Kurono Tokyo, which in theory would be somewhere in Kazakhstan. If those colours sound a little too battleship chic for your tastes, the execution is very well done, and for me, the challenge is simply a case of picking one. There's also a mono subdial black and gold version that just looks too much like the cover of Dune, and now I can't unsee that. What's most impressive is that whilst the stainless steel case matches the Nivada's 38mm across, it's substantially thinner at 11.3mm. You do sacrifice half the water resistance for that though, leaving you with just 50 meters, although sapphire, double domed, remains in play for the crystal. What you're really not paying for here is simply the execution of detail. Again, borrowing from the Scarifour's simplicity done well approach, the Furlan Mary has little to hide behind, and so it makes an effort to do those things well. It's all that little bit extra, you know? So one day the creator of the Radcliffe L'Inversee woke up and decided to make an upside down watch. Ever since the Mad One brought upside downness to a handful of lucky people, lucky enough to get one, there's been a gaping hole in the market for more. It makes absolutely no sense at all as a concept for a watch, simply making it harder to read and more awkward to wear. Yet, we're quite happy to covet cars with terrible mileage and no storage space that are built back to front with their engines in the rear. So by that logic, this should be the most popular kind of watch. I think I scored 3 10s there for my performance in the logic gymnastics. So to create what is basically the watch equivalent of reading the cooking instructions on a microwave meal after peeling off the film, there's only so many directions you can go. Mainly outwards. Up is back to square one, and down would only work on a particularly thin albino. So out it is, and for the L'Inversee. Yes, I know the Le means the, and yes, I do also say pin number. The gauntlet had been laid, and so the game was on. Here, the side-eye dial is made in triplicate, a wandering hour arrangement housed in a sapphire capsule that I bet I could get like 10 bounces from if I skimmed it on a lake. It'll be cool and smooth to the touch, like balancing a frog on your wrist. Dial side, the rotor has been improved with more rotors, for 3 in total, matching the number of wandering hour wheels below. There's not been this much spinning since Nobuyuki Kaihara DJ'd at an ice rink. Colours match front and back in 4 different shades, although if you prefer nothing to match at all, there's also a 5th option, which takes me back to the 1997 Volkswagen Polo Harlequin, a complete disaster of a car which I've now learnt fetches about $10,000. Honestly, these are the last days of Rome. Price of the L'Inversee is £550. Here's a great demonstration of how much things have changed in the bargain watch sphere recently. When Baltic first arrived on our doorsteps in 2016, they were one of very few people offering a high-quality alternative to expensive watches for not much money. The HMS and Bicompacts were derivative for sure, but good-looking, well-built and easy on the wallet, so nobody really cared. Actually, some people cared. Other opportunists looking to enjoy this untapped area of the market, they cared. And so Baltic, to stay one step ahead, has had to put his thinking shoes on and do some serious thinking. And we had the MR01, a budget-busting micro-rotor dress watch even Cary Grant would have been too shabby to pull off. And the hallucinogenic Prismic, which combines all the best bits of Nana's jewellery box into one single watch. Sort of slipping through unnoticed in between, however, is the Hermétique, Baltic's answer to the growing popularity of the field watch blueprint. It's got hints of military, a dash of Art Deco, a tickle of retro modern, and just the tiniest fondle of steampunk. Sounds like a mess, and it kind of is, but not necessarily in a bad way. Especially when you consider the Glacier edition. On top of the thick, contrasting minute track and punchy numbers at 3, 6, 9 and 12, below the syringe-like hands there's a dial that looks a little like one of those prank broken glass stickers. Only here it's sculpted in relief, assembled from concave fragments with a radial engraving for good measure. It comes in black or white, but at least to my eyes the white looks best. Maybe because the black one looks more like Santa's favourite, a piece of coal, than it does a glacier. I don't actually know, I've never seen a real glacier, and if I want to I should probably hurry up before they've all been cooked. Add all that to the weirdest crown arrangement I've seen for a while, it still pulls out but sort of stiffly like a plunger, and you've got €600 of 37mm stainless steel, 150m water resistant, Miyota 9039 powered watchiness. Especially pleasing is the thickness, which at 8.3mm without the sapphire crystal and 10.8mm with, avoids the problem of many smaller diameter watches these days of looking like a Smarties tube on the wrist. You know when things are like different, but the same. Like when you eat McDonald's in another country. There's a comforting familiarity about it, and yet they also serve beer and mayonnaise. That's the Arken Alterum, and it's such good value it's better than getting a whole handful of sauce sachets for free. The familiar part. That one Vacheron Constantin overseas that everyone went ballistic over, the overseas dual-time Everest. It balanced luxury with modernity by combining titanium and canvas with a dark mottled dial and splashes of emergency orange within its most sought-after model. My instincts tell me that's a good baseline to bring to the masses. Well, that and the doubled prices on the secondary market. So what does the Arken Alterum offer? Simple. Titanium, canvas, a dark mottled dial, and splashes of emergency orange, if you choose that version. There's also one with blue. It even gets, thanks to the modified Miyota 9015, a 12-hour GMT hand, so you can always know what time it is where your favourite celebrity lives, or whatever it is people use a GMT for. There's no hiding this watch's influence, with the 40mm integrated case complete with a knurled GMT pusher, casting more than a passing resemblance of this fan favourite. But this ain't no lipstick pig. The details are surprisingly well considered for the price. Home time and GMT both get an AM/PM indicator on either side of the dial. The GMT pusher is screwed down. The strap has a quick release. There's 200 meters of water resistance. And last but definitely not least, the date gets a place on the subdial, just like the Vacheron and far more preferable to the dirty great hole and non-matching date window that otherwise would have been there. The price? Well, it's a damn sight cheaper than those advertised for the overseas dual-time Everest. The fact the Alterum comes in at a penny under £600 seems suspiciously good value. Like, if I get one, do I owe the Mafia a favour? Will stern men in dark suits take me away in the middle of the night? Will Vacheron collectors give me stink eye on the London Underground? The latter is almost guaranteed. What you see a lot of in the budget watch collecting sphere are cheaper alternatives to familiar watches, and for those whose bank accounts weigh more in favour of post-decimal place numbers, that's pretty good. It's like getting those offcuts of the fancy ham at the deli. What you don't see a huge amount of though is original thought. I get it. When you make cheaper watches, it becomes a numbers game. You have to convince more people with less money to make the leap, and so choosing a sure thing over a complete mystery makes more sense for a business. It's not exactly defining though, and that's why it was a surprise to me to see the Beaubleu Ecce Smalt. Not just because it sounds like a Lancashire expletive, but because it doesn't look like a cheap version of any expensive watch that I'm aware of. I mean, I feel like I might have seen this somewhere before, but I don't know if I'm just thinking about when I saw the same watch yesterday. It's certainly a striking look, the watch instantly informing its reader that things are going to be a bit different from now on. Like all the best hula hoopist aerial shots, we see no less than 3 different size hoops spinning around a single point, here in place of traditional hands. Technically speaking, there's nothing fancy going on here. Those are functionally normal hands, but with the loom knocked out and inflated into spheres. The seconds whiz around in a vaguely discernible way, whereas the hours and minutes are read from the nipples on the outermost edge. The whole arrangement floats over a diamond pattern dial, which pairs the hours and date with a couple more rings. The 39mm stainless steel case containing all this does not get a pass, its central barrel cradled in a hollowed outer sleeve that extends into the lugs. The whole thing gives off "I have a secret bookshelf door" vibes, and will almost certainly be owned exclusively by the bemonocled, and that's the challenge of being so left field. Thankfully for the eccentric curious, it doubles down as a perfectly usable daily watch too, with a sapphire crystal, reliable iota movement, and 50 meters of water resistance. You know nacre, those hexagonal platelets of aragonite, which is basically a form of calcium carbonate, arranged in a continuous parallel lamina? Of course you do. This iridescent phenomenon, grown inside the shells of mollusks, is to be found in the dials of more expensive and exquisite watches, and is, to be more palatable at the point of sale, often referred to as mother of pearl. It's the same stuff as pearl, but instead of ending up like a fancy kidney stone, it layers the inside of the shell, creating a rainbow-like sheen that can be cut into discs and sold for a pretty penny. Pretty penny is right, because usually mother of pearl watches ask for a bob or two, and that puts the mollusky material out of the reach of most wearers of watches. Oh well, you might say. Let's just forget about it. If I can't have it, there's no point spending around 2 minutes talking about it. Well, here's the Orion Sylph to say otherwise, because the limited edition Black Mother of Pearl has, as the name might suggest, a disc of hexagonal aragonite platelets arranged in a continuous parallel lamina, just like you always wanted. Once you get past the name Sylph sounding like some kind of organic draining process, you'll see a 39mm stainless steel watch not too unlike the Aquaterra from Omega, complete with a myota movement, sapphire crystal, 100 meters of water resistance, and most importantly, a green-pink disc of Pearl's dad's wife. In some lights, it's dark and monochrome, almost black, and in others it erupts into a nebulosity of colour, shimmering with the natural ocean-like texture of the material. I generally considered mother of pearl to be very feminine, as most examples I'd seen lent into pink tones, but here there's enough green to balance it out, so you don't have to be more confident in yourself to wear it. The watch itself is great in terms of execution, but otherwise looks fairly forgettable, and that makes for the perfect canvas for this alien material. And at $835, whilst it's certainly not the cheapest watch of this general specification you'll find, the standard model is a chunk cheaper, it's certainly the cheapest I've found that doesn't require swallowing a brave pill to purchase. How can we not round off this video without the master of affordable fun, Studio Underdog? I really don't think it can be overstated what the watermelon did for the watch landscape, somehow giving permission to bigger, more conservative watch brands to take a chance and let their hair down. I imagine there are some Swiss watch brands that have a no-tie Friday now because of Studio Underdog. Remember earlier when I said that budget brands usually won't risk anything new and unusual? The biggest brands can be like that too, cautiously aware that a single colour in the collection not selling could cost them bazillions of Swiss schmeckles. I'd like to think that somewhere deep in a Swiss volcano layer, the Rolex design team gathered around a watermelon, cautiously, like cats investigating an upended mouse, and so was birthed the Oyster Perpetual celebration. Doesn't the celebration feel like the Taco Tuesday's corporate fun version of the watermelon? I can just imagine Rolex literally turning up a dial marked fun, with the creative director barking for more and the designer sweating bullets and wincing. It's not easy to replicate that kind of breakthrough moment, and it wasn't just Rolex that had to do it, but Studio Underdog as well. Short of doing a Jeff Buckley and leaving us with just one, there was going to need to be a second. And we got it. The Field Watch Series 02. Ugh, boring. A field watch. Those have as much personality as, well, a field. Kids go to theme parks to have fun, not fields. But that's the thing. All theme parks once started as a field, and that's the ethos we have here with the Series 02. No, not rampant decimation of our natural landscape, but the use of a blank canvas to build on. So here we have the Pink Lemonade, another fruity favourite, but this time with a twist. Below the floating sapphire printed numbers is a wash of yellow to pink, an arrangement of colour that never fails to make me feel parched. Like drink with two hands parched. You've got the colour, the interaction of space and shadow with the floating numbers, but the party's only just begun. What really gets it jumping is that the entire dial is loomed. It was a complete ball ache to figure out how to do that with the gradient, but they did it. The magic comes not in full bright light where you see the dial pop and the shadows play, or late at night when the soft yellow-green glow reminds you of those ceiling stars you used to have as a kid, but in the in-between, the golden hour of the Series 02, the moments where you've just been outside in the bright light and now you're in a slightly dim space. You get both the gradient and the glow, and now the dial looks almost as hazardous to your health as the sour lemonade candies upon which it's based. It's a bit more expensive than you might expect at £800, but when you tot up all that's happening here, the price is more than fair. As well as that extra slice of printed sapphire and the full loom dial with proprietary gradient, you also get a Swiss Solita SW210 in hand-wound guise within the 37mm stainless steel case. Crystal is sapphire, of course, so your view of the dial, and what are the only aligned screws in all of watchmaking, will remain crystal clear. It makes me endlessly happy that, despite rising prices across all the big name brands, there are still watches out there scratching itches for a fraction of the price. Why don't you let me know what bargain watches that are just too good I should feature next time? And thanks so much to my ever supportive Patreons, and to you for watching. Until we meet again, remember, if at first you don't succeed, don't try again. That's effort. Goodbye.